Okay, so now we'll talk about how to fix the tables on our website and a little bit about React hooks. Um, so the first thing to go over just real quick is the ternary operator, and this is basically a glorified if statement. So how it works is you would write something like conditional, a question mark, and then two commands. Command 1 followed by a colon and command 2. And now this statement right here is equivalent to saying if conditional run command 1 else run command 2. So this is just an easier way to write an if statement. Just keep that in mind because I use that in the code, so that's why I want to explain it first. And then we need to go over these two React hooks called useState and useEffect. You can see we use useState here. It's basically a kind of like a global variable. The reason we don't use normal variables like let x equal 0 and set it in here, for example, is because React renders this function like very fast, probably like 1,000 times a second. I don't know. But it renders this whole function every time. So if you want x to keep being 5, this won't work because it'll be 5 here, and then it'll run it again, and now it'll be 0, and then it'll be 5, and it'll be 0. But you want it to keep being 5, right? So the fix to that is useState. That's what this is. So you declare a const, put an array here, you put the name of the variable, and then you declare a function to set that variable, and then you set it equal to react.useState, and then in the parentheses here you put the default starting value of your variable. In this case it's name, so let's just say Bob. And then if you want to change this variable, well, first if you want to call this variable, you just do name, so like console.log name. If you want to change this variable, you use this function right here that we created, set name, and set it to Jim. So that is React useState. So now when the function re-renders, it won't be sent back to Bob, it'll still be Jim. So that's what those are for. useEffect is something that will be called every time a variable is updated, and the variables that it's keeping track of are stored here. But since this is an empty array, it'll only be called once at the beginning of the, I guess, when you first load the site. But since it's not keeping track of any variables, this will never be called again. So this is only called once. This whole thing is only called at the start when we load our page. And so this is where we will want to get the data from our API, right? And then put it in the tables. So that's kind of what this is doing. I made a video using Axios. I think that's just better. So we're going to be using that instead. And if you look, actually, the resources table is working because I just fixed it. But the employment table isn't. So I think that's what we need to fix. So I guess just comment this out. And then instead of fetch here, just use Axios. And the way to do that, I already made a video on. Now once we have the data, you can see in the old code I was using this React hook right here to set the data variable to whatever we got from our API, and then we set the loaded variable, which is a boolean, to true. And what that does is here where we're rendering our website, you'll see this ternary operator. It's saying if loaded is false, then it will return this loading data here, and otherwise, if loaded is true, right, if we got the data, then it'll display our table. And well, it's not working now in employment, but if you see here, right, resources, it'll first say loading data, and once it gets the data, it'll show this table. So that's just to prevent, a table with nothing in it to show up. It might be kind of weird looking. Yeah, so once a table is loaded, we'll create this table, and it takes columns and data. So data is this variable here, this state variable, which we set after we get the data from our API. And columns is already preset. I already made that up here. You see it says the header is employment. Look at the table. The header is employment, and these are all the fields. These are all the fields. So you don't need to worry about the columns here. The only thing you need to worry about is setting data. So something like this, and then whatever our new link is. And then if you look at the other video, you'll see basically this. Something like the result. You set the data to the result.data, and don't forget to set loaded equal to true, otherwise it'll be stuck on loading data forever. And yeah, that should basically fix the employment table. Let me know if you have questions about that. Yeah.